What's up, my dudes? Hashtag free the whips, bro. So this is probably the biggest sort of hashtag movement that I've seen in recent motocross gaming history right here. The whole free the whip thing is really becoming a big thing, and I don't know if a lot of people actually realize that, but what this says about these motocross games that have been coming out is they just have too much of restricted in-air physics, and you cannot whip like you actually want to. And the people that don't realize that about these recent motocross games just don't understand motocross games, because they used to not really be like that. Like back in Reflex, they weren't like that. And you could even say back in Alive, they weren't really like that as much. I mean, you could whip fairly decently in Alive. I wouldn't say you could whip as good in Alive as you could in Reflex, and I don't think they felt as good in Alive as they did in Reflex. But ever since Reflex came out, they've just been not the same, man. And that's what has birthed this entire hashtag free the whip campaign here. And with MX vs ATV All Out, they really took it to another level. Like, I mean, a lot of people would say that MX vs ATV All Out took the whips too far. You know, you could whip too much in that game. And, I mean, I would definitely agree to that to a certain extent. It gets to the point where the whips are like, you're whipping so much that it just doesn't even really feel like you're whipping at times. It feels like you're just kind of on this, I don't know, completely unrealistic bike feeling, so then you kind of lose some of the fun in that. But there still is a lot of fun factor in the whipping in MX vs ATV All Out. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it is fun. Like I've always said, I would much rather have where you could whip too much than not enough. You know what I'm saying? And I had somebody actually leave a comment on one of my videos. He said something like, well, I would rather it be where you can't whip very much at all, but the game was more realistic, you know? And somebody else replied to his comment and said, if you can't whip very much, that's not realistic, dumbass. So I thought that was pretty funny how that little conversation happened in my comment section. But that's seriously how some people think. You know, they think that they would rather have restricted whips than have too much of whips. And I don't understand that. Because it really is true. Like, if you're not able to whip, if you come off a jump face and you can barely even turn in the air, then that's not realistic anyways. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? I would rather it whip too much than not enough. So, but in this video, I wanted to go in here and specifically talk about the way it's looking in MXGP Pro. Now that they've came out with a little bit more gameplay, ooh, I don't know about this one, man. I know I was somewhat positive about certain things on my other early gameplay video that I made about MXGP Pro. That was when I had seen, like, you know, 2 or 3 different gameplays. Now that I've seen a little bit more and kind of seen some of the whips and stuff, ooh, she's starting to get questionable. I don't know, man. It's looking kind of weird. I don't know if I'm the only person thinking that. I don't know. But just like they'll come off. Let me see if I can kind of show it to you guys. Let me get over here on a jump. Like, they'll come off of a jump and they'll whip, and the bike will do like that right there. And that's like the most it'll do. You know, it'll do like that right there. That's about the most it'll whip in the air on the MXGP Pro gameplay. And one aspect of it, and I talked about this before, but with some of the gameplay I've been seeing of the actual MXGP replica tracks, the jumps look tiny. I mean, it looks like you're barely even jumping at all, and it's really got me concerned because, oh my god, that was like one of the biggest downsides to all of the MXGP games, is the fact that the tracks, the jumps just weren't anything. You know, you felt like you were barely coming off the ground. Every single jump was like a little 2-foot jump, and you just, I don't know, there's just a certain scaling issue they seem to have always had with their actual MXGP replica tracks, and it looks like that in MXGP Pro. It really does. So it's like I've always said, I mean, you know, if you're only jumping 2 feet in the air, it doesn't really matter how good your whip system is. You can't whip anyways, right? So that's part of the problem that is kind of building up here with this MXGP Pro, is if there's no big jumps, we're not going to be able to whip anyways, regardless of how good the whip system is. So they have to fix the tracks before you can make the whips, before you can free up the whips, right? So it's like, I don't know, they're just in a weird state right now. But from what I've been seeing in early gameplay, and obviously it's just early gameplay, we don't know, we haven't actually got our hands on the game, I understand all that, right? What I don't understand is how some of these game companies will come out with early gameplay and they don't even really show like good whips, right? They don't even really show like what you're actually wanting to see a lot of the times. It's very bizarre how they do that. I don't understand that, but who knows? Maybe they weren't showing the actual pro gameplay with the whips on. Maybe the whips are totally different when you actually have the pro, quote unquote, pro physics, not the MXGP3 Pro physics, but the MXGP Pro physics. Got to straighten all that shit out, because they have pro physics in MXGP3. If you didn't realize, they have a pro physics option in there. If you didn't realize that, but apparently the MXGP Pro is like another level of pro. So yeah, maybe if you got the actual pro physics turned on, then you can whip a lot more. But like I'm saying, if you're not even getting off the ground, it doesn't fucking matter anyways. So that's why I'm so concerned about MXGP Pro, is because of the tracks. The jumps, they just look so small. Like, so small, man. I mean, there is just a certain level of size that you have to have the jumps, or you will, like, completely eliminate the fun factor in a motocross game. You really will. It's kind of like talking about that second round in the official Monster Energy Supercross game. Whatever track that was, can't remember now, but it was the one that had like the super small rolled off jump, rolled off rhythm section jumps. Felt like you was barely coming off the ground. I can't stand that track. That track's god awful. It's terrible. When you talk about motocross, I understand outdoor motocross is not as much about the jumps. It's more about the roughness and the ruts, which MXGP Pro seems to not exactly have as well, which is a big concern, right? It's like, you know, you're not as concerned about the jumps if you have a ton of roughness and a ton of ruts, because then that's what you're riding on. But, I mean, I don't know, MXGP Pro, it still doesn't look like you're getting in hardcore grab-you ruts in the corners. There's not really rough. I mean, I'm still not seeing roughness. I don't know what the deal is, man. And I know the MXGP tracks are not necessarily as rough as the Lucas Oil AMA motocross tracks and all that, but it's just it's giving me a weird feeling now. I mean, whenever I saw the compound gameplay of like in the trees and the cool sunlight was coming through, I was like, oh dude, this is sick. The graphics look really cool, and it looks like they got a little bit more movement on the bike. But some of the other actual MXGP replica track gameplay I've seen on MXGP Pro has just worried me, dude. Very, very worrisome. Just that it's going to be so much like what we've already seen with MXGP3. I mean, I think you're still going to have a lot of movement on the bike as far as on the ground and in the corners, right? Like how it was in the official Monster Energy Supercross game. The corners are going to be, like, as far as how the bike feels in the corners, I think it's going to be okay in that sense. But, like, the track design, I'm just very, very hesitant about that. And the jump actual heights and lengths, I'm very worried about that, and all that little stuff like that. It's got me just concerned, you know, just concerned for it's gonna just kind of, my thought is just gonna kind of feel like MXGP3 with the official Monster Energy Supercross game physics, and I hope that's not the case. I hope it's more of a new actual pro physics thing, and it is a truly difficult game to get really good at. I hope it's like that. I honestly do. There's nothing I would love to see more than it really have pro physics. But to all you guys that thought it was going to be a simulator, I know some of you guys were, whenever I made that video, a lot of you guys were like, oh, well, Spencer, they haven't even showed the actual, the actual pro physics gameplay, you know, blah, 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 acting like it could actually be like a simulator. No, dude. No. By this point, they would be fools not to be showing you the actual pro physics in the game, and it looks nothing like a simulator, not even remotely close. So, like I said before, it ain't gonna be no simulator. Not even in the same realm as a simulator. Not like, you know, there's simulators out there, and then there's games that aren't even in the same realm as a simulator, and then you got games that are close to a simulator. This is not that at all. It's not gonna be like that at all, bro. Just saying, just telling you guys, it's not not what it's going to be, but we'll just have to wait and see. I hope these motocross gaming companies can learn from the hashtag free the whip thing. I think it really is making a big impact, and you can see the difference in how much you can whip in MXGP3 to the official Monster Energy Supercross game, right? It's like they understand they need to be changing that, and how much different you can whip from MX vs. ATV Supercross Encore and all of that to MX vs. ATV All Out. Drastically different whip system. I think at this point, for the MX vs. ATV series, it's more of a matter of just fine-tuning the whip system. It's got to feel more real when you come off the jump face. It's got to feel more fluent like it did in Reflex. It's got to feel more like that than it is just a kind of like a little arcade mobile game or something like that you're playing. They just have to fine-tune their whips. I think they have plenty of whip in MX vs. ATV All Out. Like I said, somewhat on the too much side, but now it's just a matter of toning and tuning it. Whereas when it comes to these milestone games, I feel like their biggest problem is their whips still feel like you're just hitting one button and whipping, right? It's like you're just leaning over and it's doing the same exact kind of whip every time you come off that jump face. Even though, yes, it is whipping further than it has been in the past, it still doesn't have that like variation feeling of whips when you come off a jump face, and like every little minute leaning kind of thing you do coming off the jump face makes a completely different whip style. It's not so much like that. It feels like you're just hitting a button and the bike's just whipping to a certain level, and however long you hold it is however long it's going to pull it over. But it's going to do the same exact, it's almost like it's doing the same exact animation every time you do a whip. So, and also obviously making it to where we can change the button layout where we can actually whip with two sticks the same direction instead of having to turn them opposite directions like it is in every single other motocross game. Having that option in there will make a difference as well. But yeah, I think that's Milestone's biggest issue right now is just jump design, making big enough jumps to even whip on. And then, I don't want it to be like the only jumps you can really whip on is the compound Supercross track jumps. Like, that would be so stupid. I just hope some of their replica tracks that we haven't seen have a lot bigger jumps to them. And I think a lot of what hurts it too is some of the kind of style of the MXGP tracks in real life. They really do lend themselves more to that, like where you'll come around a corner, go up a big hill, and then you'll like just jump a little bitty jump and then go back down a hill. There's a lot of that in the MXGP realm, so it being a replica style game, I find it to be, it's like it's very difficult for them to figure out a way to make the jumps feel bigger without it being crazy different from like real life scaling purposes. You see what I'm saying? So I don't know, but I think that's what their biggest issue right now is just trying to figure that out. Like, how are we going to get the bigger jumps in there? How are we going to make the whips actually feel varied when you do them? And if they can get all that figured out and give you more button options for the whips and stuff, I think they got definitely potential to it. I'm just concerned by some of the recent stuff I've been seeing on the game. So either way, man, don't forget, I have all of my playlists on my front page. Got MX Simulator playlist, got everything, Call of Duty playlist. I mean, got it all on there, dude. And don't forget, you guys can follow me on Instagram, Snapchat, all of that stuff, PlayStation Network, Steam. You can add me on all that different stuff. It's just Spencer Turley, no space, no capital. That's what all of my social media, basically every single thing I have is just my name, no space, no capital. So definitely go check me out on all that. And don't forget, you guys can also donate down below if you want to. If you don't want to, it's totally cool, bro. Just like to every once in a while let you guys know that, yes, I do actually have a donation page there that if you want to do it, you can. And I do actually, oh, good Lord, some of these mountainsides here get a little bit tricky. I do actually read your message at the beginning of a video that you leave on your donation and stuff like that, and I got a top 10 list and all that stuff. So either way, I appreciate you guys watching all the videos. Later, dudes.